Hello and welcome to KGW News at 5 o'clock on this Thursday. For more than a month, we have seen nightly protests in Portland. And today, the head of Homeland Security, one of the top federal law enforcement officials in the country, flew to town. And he put out a letter criticizing the city's response to the protests. Mayor Ted Wheeler tweeted this afternoon saying, "We're aware that DHS leadership is in town. We wish they weren't. We haven't been invited to meet with them, and if we were, we would decline." All of this comes just hours after the city shut down 2 parks across from the Justice Center and federal courthouse, where protesters have converged nightly. Morgan Romero has the latest.
Tents spread across Lonsdale and Chapman Squares 2 nights in a row in what appeared to be an attempt to create an autonomous zone downtown. Law enforcement moved in and cleared the parks around 5 a.m. Thursday. Fences went up, closing off the parks temporarily. Portland Parks and Rec says they have to repair the benches, bathrooms, and lawns after protesters vandalized them. City crews spent the morning picking up trash in the area, surrounded by law enforcement. Police arrested 9 people, including this man, when he knocked off his bike, and handcuffed for allegedly interfering with officers and disorderly conduct. This comes the same day acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf visited Portland. On Twitter, Wolf condemned what he calls, quote, rampant, long-lasting violence in the city. President Trump sent more federal officers here recently to help local authorities, which Governor Kate Brown says is an abuse of power. In a statement, she says she told acting Secretary Wolf they should remove federal officers from Oregon streets. The governor said, quote, his response showed me he's on a mission to provoke confrontation for political purposes.
I think the police are just, their hands are tied, aren't they?
As they watched the fences go up, some Portlanders told us the fight has gone too far.
I think it's very much necessary because in the absence of that, we've had destruction and mayhem every single night and now even during the daytime. And it's just too much. It's too much.
I think what they've done to the statues, burning them, and I've lived here all my life, and so these have been a part of my life, and it's like they're just destroying it, and it just breaks my heart.
Nearby business owner Martin Cudd feels both sides go too far at times.
Those who intend on doing destruction will. I think they're just taking advantage of the situation and making it worse for everybody. But it's my hope that it doesn't detract from the cause itself.
Unfortunately, Cudd says revolutions get messy.
I think the protesting is necessary until the task is completed. And the task of dealing with racial injustice.
Morgan Romero, KGW News.
Now to the coronavirus crisis. Today, Oregon reported its highest number of new COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began. 437 new cases were reported, and that's the spike you see there at the end of that graph. 2 new deaths were also reported. The Oregon Health Authority says the rise in cases is due to social gatherings like graduations, birthdays, weddings, and holidays. And they're finding the virus is spreading more within groups of younger people. Outbreaks at long-term care facilities and workplaces are also contributing to the rise in case numbers. Another alarming statistic, there are now 60 COVID outbreaks tied to workplaces in Oregon. The largest one is in a state prison. Others include big-name food processing plants. The common thread, advocates argue, essential workers are not being protected. Here's Maggie Vespa.
This is an interactive map built by KGW of the now 60 workplace outbreaks in Oregon. The state says 5 cases or more of COVID-19 constitutes an outbreak. Most of these have far more than that. The counties in darkest blue are sites of the largest workplace outbreaks. You can see Marion County is the darkest. It's home to the Oregon State Penitentiary, which has 184 cases. The second and third largest outbreaks are respectively at the Pacific Seafood Plant in Newport. The OHA says it has 181 cases, and the Lamb Weston plant in Hermiston. It's a potato processing facility, home to 142 cases. The OHA also reporting 8 deaths have been associated with workplace outbreaks in Oregon. Officials won't say where those 8 people worked. In its report, the OHA wrote the outbreaks highlight the challenges of controlling COVID-19 in settings where people must work or live in proximity, adding people of color are overrepresented in agricultural and correctional settings, contributing to the higher rates of COVID-19 observed in these groups.
Essential workers, the same workers everyone likes to call heroes, they should be treated like heroes. And
Graham Trainer is the president of the Oregon AFL-CIO, the State Federation of Labor Unions. They represent roughly 300,000 Oregon workers. Last month, he wrote a guest opinion in the Statesman Journal calling on politicians and business leaders to do a better job of protecting essential workers. Here's one example.
Workers also need access to paid and protected leave for all workers. When our state passed our paid sick leave law, which was 5 days of required paid sick leave for most workers in the state, we never contemplated a 14-day quarantine period.
Late today, the director of the Oregon Health Authority said the agency is working closely with OSHA to educate workplaces.
They adopted farm worker safety standards 2 or 3 months ago that increased levels of protections in that area.
Reps at Lamb Weston and Pacific Seafood tell KGW they're doing a lot to keep workers safe, following CDC guidelines on social distancing, masks, and screenings. A rep for Pacific Seafood also contends that the state's report makes the situation seem worse than it is. For instance, he pointed out Pacific Seafood's last case was documented on June 30th. The OHA report confirms that. The vast majority of those sickened, that spokesman said, have recovered. As for the largest outbreak at the Oregon State Penitentiary, no one from the Department of Corrections was available for an interview. Maggie Vespa, KGW News.
We've been diving into testing the last couple of days. It's a key in knowing just how much the virus is spreading in our area. Let's bring in Pat Doris now. Hey, Pat, this is the time when people may have plans to travel, they may have family coming to town, and they might want to get a test just to make sure they don't have the virus. But expert you talk to say that's not the way to go?
Right, and that's a real common feeling about let's just everybody get tested so we know that we're okay. But the problem is the way the virus works, it can be in your body for 14 days without any symptoms. So if you have a test and you don't have any symptoms, it might be so small that the test can't find it. So you get a negative test, you go on vacation, 3-4 days later, you start to get a cough, trouble. Now everybody's getting exposed. Or maybe you really don't have it, but the very next day you get exposed to somebody who gives it to you. So it's kind of a point in time check. So it's not very good if you don't have any symptoms and you just want to be reassured. It is good if you have some symptoms and you want to confirm that that's what's going on.
And Pat, we're seeing the number of cases go up, and with more cases comes a higher demand for tests. And that could mean a longer waiting time to get your results, right?
That's exactly right. In fact, we have some numbers to show you. Oregon's test through July 6th, getting up there into the 30,000 range. Its capacity is about 40,000, so we still have a little room in Oregon to keep going up, but nationally it's up around 4 million, and this is on a weekly basis we're talking about. So that is a ton of tests. One of the big labs, Quest, told me that they can do about 125,000 tests a week. So you see that that is starting to overload the system. It creates supply chains problems. They start to run out of chemicals, and as that happens, it stretches the time that it takes for you to get your test results back. We're hearing from Multnomah County, some of the results that are being sent in now don't get a result for 10 days. So imagine that if you're trying to get a test to clear you to go to Alaska or go on vacation with some friends. 10 days is not very helpful.
Boy, that's a long wait. Thank you for the update, Pat. We appreciate it. Vancouver police are looking for a man who attacked a woman in a dispute over a mask. It happened last night in the parking lot between Clark College and Hudson's Bay High School. The woman says she and the man were both working out on the track. She asked him to keep his distance and wear a mask. He didn't comply, so she left. But he followed her to the parking lot and started hitting and kicking her. The woman spoke with us today about the incident. She didn't want to be identified. She says she's a student at Clark College and she's worried about working out down at the track again.
College is supposed to open up in fall, and we're going to start in school instead of online. And I don't think I'll be working out over there though anymore. I'm going to stay closer to home.
The suspect and a woman who was with him left in a black SUV. Anyone who saw the attack or may have information about the suspect is asked to call Vancouver police. Still ahead here at 5 o'clock, U.S. lawmakers working on another stimulus package. We'll look at when it may be approved and who might benefit. And a Portland restaurant shuts down twice due to COVID-19. We'll hear from the owner of Arden about her struggles to reopen and keeping her staff and customers safe.
Laura, we've seen perfect conditions the last couple of days, and today's no different, but I'm tracking some changes for tomorrow. How long it'll last coming up.